My dad smirked and said, "Your sister earned everything on her own, unlike you." I replied, "You sure about that, Dad? Stay with me till the end, because this story still stings when I think about it, but it's also the moment my life finally changed." I had just come home from a long shift at the hospital. My promotion letter was still folded neatly in my bag, and I couldn't wait to share the news. I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally be proud of me. I stepped into the living room, where my mom and dad sat with my younger sister, Jasmine, who was scrolling through her phone with that effortless confidence she always had. "Guess what?" I said, smiling. "I just got promoted to senior nurse." My mom barely looked up. "That's nice, honey," she said flatly. My dad nodded once, but didn't smile. Before I could say more, Jasmine chimed in. "That's great, Naomi. But guess who just signed her third client this week?" She flashed her phone, showing off her interior design work. My parents clapped like she had just won a Nobel Prize. Dad even said, "Now that's what hard work looks like." I froze. I wanted to believe I misheard him. But then he looked right at me, that smirk curling on his lips, and said, "Your sister earned everything on her own, unlike you." Something inside me cracked. I stared at him, my voice shaking. "You sure about that, Dad?" The room went quiet for a second, but he just laughed, brushing me off like I was a child throwing a tantrum. It wasn't the first time. Growing up, Jasmine was always the favorite. She got the newest clothes, the car when she turned 16, even help with college. I worked 2 part-time jobs to pay my tuition, but they called it being independent. Funny how independence only mattered when it came to me. That night, I sat in my room replaying his words over and over. "Unlike you." It burned. I looked around my small apartment, thinking of the nights I skipped meals so I could save for textbooks, the holidays I spent working double shifts while Jasmine posted vacation photos. I had given up so much, and still, I wasn't enough. I thought about walking away from them forever. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about hurt feelings, it was about respect. I wanted the truth to be seen. For once, I wanted them to know who I really was, what I had done, and what they had taken for granted. That night, something changed in me. I stopped being the daughter who begged for approval. I decided I would show them, not with words, but with actions. I didn't know yet what was coming, but I promised myself this. That smirk on my father's face? It wouldn't be the last thing he remembered about me. After that night, I stopped trying to please anyone. I focused on work, on keeping my head down, but deep inside, something in me stayed unsettled. My dad's smirk replayed in my mind every time I thought about Jasmine. The perfect daughter. The one who could do no wrong. Weeks later, my mom invited me over for dinner. I almost said no, but a small part of me wanted to prove I wasn't broken by their words. When I walked in, Jasmine was already there, talking about her growing business. "I just signed another client in Atlanta," she said proudly. "Hard work really pays off." My dad nodded like she'd invented success itself. I tried to tune them out until I heard my mom say quietly, "We still haven't told Naomi about the loan." My hand froze midair. "Loan?" My dad shushed her quickly, but I caught the words. "It's handled, Evelyn. She doesn't need to know." That night, I couldn't sleep. What loan were they talking about? My parents had never been wealthy. My grandmother, though, she used to talk about leaving something for us after she passed. But when she died years ago, my parents said there wasn't much left. I didn't question it back then. I trusted them. A few days later, curiosity got the best of me. I stopped by my mom's house while she was out and looked through the old file cabinet she kept in the study. I felt guilty doing it, but I had to know. I flipped through folders until I found one labeled Grandma Rivers, Estate. My hands trembled as I opened it. There it was. A will. My grandmother had left money for both me and Jasmine. It wasn't small either, over $100,000 each. But only Jasmine's name had a checkmark beside it, and next to mine was a note in my father's handwriting. Transferred to Jasmine for business startup. My heart dropped. I sat there in silence, staring at the papers. I remembered Jasmine bragging about building her company from scratch, talking about how proud Grandma would be. Now I knew the truth. She built it with stolen money. My money. When I confronted her later, she acted clueless. "Naomi, you're imagining things," she said, laughing nervously. But her eyes gave her away. They darted, then hardened. "Dad said it was better this way," she finally whispered. "You wouldn't know how to handle that kind of money." I stood there, stunned. All those years of being told I was irresponsible, ungrateful, unworthy. It was all a lie to cover what they'd done. My sister's perfect image was built on betrayal, and my parents helped her do it. That night, I stared at the documents again, my anger slowly turning into something colder. For the first time in my life, I saw them clearly, not as family, but as people who had taken from me without shame. They thought I'd stay silent forever. They were wrong. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house with the will in my bag and fire in my chest. I told myself to stay calm, but my hands shook the entire drive. When I walked in, my dad was watching TV, and Mom was in the kitchen humming like it was any normal day. I placed the documents on the table. "You want to explain this?" I asked, my voice trembling. My mom turned, confused for half a second. Then her face went blank. My dad didn't even look up. "Naomi, where did you get that?" Mom asked softly. "Where do you think?" "Grandma's will. The one you told me didn't exist." She sighed, setting down her dish towel. "Naomi, you have to understand, your sister needed that money more than you did. She had a business to start. You're a nurse, you're stable." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you decided for me? You took my inheritance and gave it to Jasmine." My dad finally turned around, his tone sharp. "Watch how you talk to your mother. We did what was best for the family." "The family?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Or Jasmine?" He glared at me. "Don't start this drama. Your sister worked hard. She earned everything she has." That word again, earned. I felt it like a knife. "She didn't earn it, Dad. She stole it. And you helped her." He stood up, his face red. "You've always been jealous of her success. Always playing the victim. We didn't tell you about the inheritance because you're too emotional. You'd have wasted it." I felt my throat close up. "Emotional? You forged my signature." "That's not emotional, that's criminal." My mom came closer, lowering her voice like she was comforting a child. "Naomi, please. Don't make this bigger than it is. You were never good with money. Jasmine was. Grandma would have wanted her to have it." I stared at her, stunned. Grandma adored me. She used to tell me I reminded her of herself, quiet but strong. Now they were twisting her memory to justify stealing from me. I backed away, my pulse racing. "You've rewritten everything to make her look perfect. You lied to me for years, and you think I'll just accept it." My dad crossed his arms. "You can believe whatever you want, but don't ruin this family with your accusations." I looked at them both, really looked at them. Two people I had once trusted completely. Now all I saw were faces that hid behind lies and favoritism. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just picked up the papers and said quietly, "You both chose her over me. Don't worry, I'll make sure the truth chooses me." As I walked out, my mom called after me, her voice trembling. "Naomi, don't do anything stupid." But I already knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to confront them anymore. I was going to prove everything. I couldn't sleep for days after that confrontation. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's angry face and my mother's calm lies. I kept hearing their voices in my head, telling me I wasn't responsible, that Jasmine deserved everything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized they weren't just covering for her. They'd built an entire story to make me doubt myself. But now I needed proof, something undeniable. At the hospital, during my lunch break, I reached out to one of the senior doctors I trusted, Dr. Ellis. He had connections everywhere, including a few lawyers who handled estate cases. I didn't tell him everything, just said I needed to track down the attorney who managed my grandmother's will. Within a few days, he gave me a name, Richard Coleman, retired but still reachable through his old office. I called the number one evening after my shift. A tired voice answered, and I explained who I was. There was a pause, then he said, "Ah, Rivers. I remember that case. Complicated one. Family disagreements." My stomach tightened. He agreed to meet me quietly at his office the next night. When I arrived, he looked older than I expected, gray hair, kind eyes, the sort of man who'd seen too much family greed. I told him I believed my signature on the will documents had been forged. He hesitated before opening an old metal cabinet and pulling out a thin brown folder. "I'm not supposed to show this," he said, "but something about that case always bothered me." He laid the papers on the desk, and my heart sank when I saw my name next to a shaky, unfamiliar signature. Mine. Except it wasn't. I never signed anything like that. The page showed the full inheritance, half to Jasmine, half to me, crossed out and retyped to show only Jasmine's share. My father's initials were scribbled next to the change. "Who authorized this?" I asked, my voice trembling. He sighed. "Your father insisted you'd given verbal consent. I thought it seemed strange, but he brought a notarized statement with both your signatures. I assumed it was legitimate. My hands went cold. So they hadn't just lied, they'd planned it. Forged, falsified, stolen. I asked for copies, and he hesitated again before quietly sliding them into an envelope. I shouldn't be doing this, he said, but if something's wrong, it should be made right. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table staring at those documents for hours. Every piece of paper was a reminder of how easily my family erased me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The anger I felt was too deep for that. It was quiet, focused. I scanned and saved everything, labeling each file carefully. Then I locked the originals in my drawer. For the first time, I felt something close to power. They thought I was weak, emotional, naive. They had no idea what I was about to do. When my mom called inviting me over for dinner, I almost laughed. After everything, they still thought I'd come running back like nothing happened. But I said yes. I wanted to see them, to look them in the eyes and watch them lie again. Except this time, I wouldn't react. I'd play their game better than they ever could. I spent the day pretending to be calm. Inside, my stomach twisted with anger, but my face stayed neutral. When I arrived, the house smelled like roasted chicken and jasmine candles. My mom's way of making everything seem perfect. My dad sat at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone. Jasmine was already there, dressed up, glowing with her usual confidence. "Well, look who decided to show up," my dad said without looking up. "Good to see you too, Dad," I replied, smiling. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. Dinner started light. My mom fussed over Jasmine's new dress, and Jasmine didn't waste a second before launching into her latest success story. "I just signed a new deal with a high-end client in Miami," she said, twirling her wine glass. "And Miles and I are thinking of getting engaged soon." Mom gasped, clapping her hands. "Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. You've always been such a go-getter." I watched the performance quietly, chewing my food slowly. Every word felt like a test. How much could I listen to before breaking? But instead of reacting, I leaned in, smiling politely. "That's amazing, Jasmine," I said softly. "You've really built such a big life for yourself. All on your own, right?" Her smile twitched just slightly, the kind of flicker most people wouldn't notice. "But I did." She nodded quickly. "Of course. I've worked hard for everything I have." "Right," I said, tilting my head. "No help at all?" My dad looked up, frowning. "What are you getting at, Naomi?" "Nothing," I said easily, setting down my fork. "Just making conversation." The table fell quiet for a moment before Jasmine laughed a little too loudly. "Naomi's just teasing, Dad. She knows how proud Grandma would be of me." I felt the heat rise in my chest, but kept my tone light. "Yeah, Grandma always believed in fairness. I'm sure she'd be proud of how things turned out." My mom shifted uncomfortably. My dad cleared his throat and changed the subject to the weather. But Jasmine avoided my eyes for the rest of dinner. When dessert came, I stood up, thanking them for the meal. "Sorry, long shift tomorrow," I said, grabbing my bag. My dad muttered something about always running off, but I ignored him. As I walked to my car, I caught my reflection in the window, calm, steady, unreadable. They thought my silence meant defeat, but it wasn't. I wasn't retreating. I was waiting. And the next time I sat at that table, it wouldn't be to eat. It would be to end the show. A week after that dinner, I ran into Miles' heart by accident. Or maybe fate had its own plans. He was standing outside a cafe downtown, holding a bouquet and looking anxious. I recognized him immediately from Jasmine's endless social media photos and family chatter. Jasmine's perfect fiancé. The one who thought he'd found a loyal, hardworking woman. He smiled politely when our eyes met. "Naomi, right? Jasmine's sister?" I nodded. "That's me." We ended up having coffee together after he mentioned Jasmine was running late. He seemed easy to talk to, gentle, grounded, nothing like my sister's usual type. He talked about his engineering projects and how he loved simple things, quiet dinners, long walks, fixing things himself. He laughed when I said Jasmine didn't seem like the type who'd enjoy dirt under her nails. "You're right," he said, smiling. "But I love her anyway." I forced a smile. That was the first time guilt pricked my chest. Miles was kind, honest, and completely blind to the kind of person Jasmine really was. Over the next few weeks, we ran into each other again. At family events, quick errands, even once at the hospital when he brought lunch for Jasmine. We talked more, and slowly he began opening up. He mentioned how Jasmine was always secretive about her finances, how she got defensive whenever he asked about her investors. One afternoon, while waiting for coffee, he sighed and said, "She's so independent, but sometimes I feel like she's hiding something." I stared at my cup, my heart pounding. I wanted to tell him everything right there, but the words stuck in my throat. He didn't deserve this, but I needed proof first, proof that would end all their lies at once. That night, I started digging. Through quiet calls and favors from a few people I knew in finance, I found records linking Jasmine's company to a contractor named Tyler West. On paper, he was just another supplier. But text messages between them, pulled from leaked emails, told another story. Intimate messages, hotel bookings, promises. Jasmine wasn't just cheating financially. She was cheating in every possible way. I saved everything. Screenshots, messages, transaction logs, even photos of Jasmine and Tyler together at a resort she'd told Miles was a business conference. Each file went neatly into a folder labeled for Miles. Every night after work, I'd sit at my kitchen table staring at those documents. My hands would hover over my phone, tempted to send them to him right away. But I knew I couldn't rush. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. I thought about Miles's gentle smile, his kind eyes, the way he talked about building a life with her. He deserved to know who he was marrying. And when the truth came out, it needed to be undeniable, public, and unforgettable. So I waited. Patiently. Quietly. Because some storms aren't loud. They build in silence, until the moment they break everything in their path. The night of the engagement party felt like the calm before a storm I had been waiting months to unleash. The event was held at a fancy hotel ballroom, dripping with gold decorations and flowers that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Jasmine loved grand gestures. She loved being admired. And tonight, everyone was there to adore her: family, friends, business partners, and of course Miles. I arrived a few minutes late, wearing a simple black gown and silver earrings Grandma had left me. Nothing extravagant, but elegant enough to blend in. As I walked in, conversations paused for a second. My mother's smile was tight, my father looked annoyed, and Jasmine's eyes narrowed just a little before she flashed her practiced grin. "Naomi, you came," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt colder than the champagne. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I said softly. The night went on with laughter and expensive wine. Jasmine moved through the crowd like a star, introducing Miles to every guest as the love of my life. He looked proud, still unaware of the truth. I watched him from across the room and felt both pity and determination. He didn't know yet, but soon he would. Dinner was served, and then came the speeches. My dad stood first, making his usual comments about hard work and success, all directed at Jasmine. I sat quietly, smiling when people glanced my way. When the applause faded, I rose from my chair. "If I may," I said, raising my glass. The room turned toward me. Jasmine's smile faltered, just slightly. "I just want to make a quick toast to my sister," I began. "She's built such an incredible life. So many accomplishments. And all on her own right." I looked straight at her, and for the first time, I saw fear flash across her face. Whispers rippled through the crowd. My dad's eyes hardened. "Naomi," he said under his breath, "sit down." But I didn't. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the folded documents. The will, the forged signature, the proof of the embezzled inheritance. I placed them gently on the table beside the cake. "You know," I said, my voice steady, "it's funny how people can rewrite history when they think no one will notice." The room went dead silent. Miles stood, confusion on his face. "What is this?" he asked. "These are the papers that show how Jasmine and my father transferred my grandmother's inheritance, my share, into Jasmine's business account. The business she built, the money she bragged about earning. It was stolen." My mother gasped. Jasmine's face went pale. "Naomi, stop," she hissed. But I didn't. I met my father's eyes. "Remember when you said she earned everything on her own? You sure about that, Dad?" Miles picked up the papers, scanning them quickly. His expression changed from disbelief to disgust. Without a word, he placed his engagement ring on the table and walked out. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. My father's smirk was gone, replaced by shame. And I finally felt something I hadn't in years: peace. The day after the engagement party felt strangely quiet. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages, missed calls, voicemails, but I didn't answer any of them. I just sat by my window with a cup of coffee, watching the morning light fill the room. I'd done what needed to be done. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. By noon, the news had already spread through town. Someone had recorded the scene at the party and shared it with others. Clients started pulling out from Jasmine's business almost immediately. The story was simple but devastating. A young designer who built her career using stolen inheritance money. I didn't celebrate it, but I didn't feel sorry either. Actions have consequences, even for the golden child. Later that day, my father showed up at my apartment. I could hear his car door slam before he even reached my door. When I opened it, his face was red, his voice sharp. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he shouted. "Yes," I said calmly, stepping aside. "I told the truth." He stormed inside, pointing a finger at me. "You humiliated this family. Your sister is a wreck. Your mother can't even show her face at church, and you." I cut him off, my voice steady. "You mean I embarrassed the lie you built? You should be thanking me for finally ending it." He froze, eyes wide. For a second, I saw something almost like fear behind his anger. Then he slammed his hand on the table. "You think you're righteous, Naomi, but all you did was destroy your sister's future." I met his glare. "No, Dad. She destroyed it when she stole what wasn't hers." We stood there in silence. He opened his mouth again, but nothing came out. He finally muttered, "You'll regret this," and walked out. I didn't stop him. A few hours later, Mom called. Her voice was trembling. "Naomi, please, you could have handled it differently," she said softly. "How, Mom? By staying quiet? By pretending everything was fine while she took what Grandma left for me?" She didn't answer right away. I heard her sniffle. "I just wanted peace in this family." "Peace built on lies isn't peace, Mom. It's denial." That's when she broke. She started crying, the kind of deep, painful cry that comes from realizing something too late. "I thought I was protecting everyone," she whispered. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. Over the next week, Jasmine tried reaching out, but I ignored her calls. Her company's website disappeared. Her social media accounts went quiet. The perfect life she'd built was crumbling, and for once, it wasn't my fault. For the first time, I felt tall, steady, grounded, free. I wasn't the quiet daughter in the background anymore. I wasn't the one trying to earn love. I was just Naomi Rivers, calm, unapologetic, and finally standing in my own truth. Filing the charges was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but it was also the clearest one. I walked into the courthouse with a folder full of evidence and a heart that no longer shook. I wasn't doing this out of revenge anymore. I was doing it because it was right. They had stolen from me, lied to me, and rewritten the truth. It was time for the law to rewrite it back. My lawyer, Ms. Daniels, a calm woman with sharp eyes, reviewed everything once more. "You have enough proof, Naomi," she said firmly. "The forged signature, the financial transfers, the notarized lies, they won't be able to talk their way out of this." When Leonard and Jasmine were served with the court summons, chaos followed. My phone lit up with messages again. My mother pleading, Jasmine begging, and my father furious. "You really want to drag your own family into court?" he shouted over the phone. "You dragged yourself there the moment you forged my name," I replied and hung up. The first hearing was brutal. Jasmine arrived in a beige suit, her usual confidence gone. Leonard sat beside her, glaring at me like I was the traitor. My mom sat in the back, eyes full of tears. I didn't look away. I couldn't. When the lawyer presented the evidence, the courtroom went silent. My signature, the bank transfers, even the notary statement with my father's initials. It was all there in black and white. Jasmine looked pale, twisting her hands as the judge read through the documents. My father tried to defend himself, saying he only did it to protect the family. The judge cut him off. "Forgery is not protection, Mr. Rivers. It's fraud." I'll never forget that moment. Watching the man who had spent years smirking at my pain finally sit speechless. It wasn't joy I felt. It was release. The kind of peace that comes from knowing the truth is finally louder than the lies. After hours of testimony, the ruling came. The court found both Leonard and Jasmine guilty of inheritance fraud and forgery. They were ordered to repay my half of the estate, plus damages. But it wasn't the money that mattered. It was the acknowledgement, the public record stating what they had done. As we walked out of the courtroom, Jasmine couldn't even look at me. My mother came up to me quietly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I nodded. "I know," I said softly. "I just wish you had been sorry sooner." Outside, the autumn air felt crisp against my skin. For the first time, I wasn't carrying their guilt anymore. I had faced them, all of them, and I hadn't backed down. I didn't win just a case. I won myself back, the version of me that believed in her own worth, even when no one else did. And that victory, I knew, would last far longer than any check ever could. It had been 8 months since the court case ended. Life had gone quiet, peaceful even. My apartment no longer echoed with late-night arguments in my head, just the gentle hum of the city outside my window. I had gone back to work at the hospital, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I was no longer Leonard Rivers' daughter who wasn't enough. I was just Naomi. One morning, while sorting through my mail, I found an envelope with familiar handwriting. My father's. The sight of his name made my chest tighten. The letter inside was short, written in shaky pen strokes. Naomi, I don't know how to fix what I've done. Jasmine moved away. Your mother doesn't speak much anymore. I keep thinking about what I said that night, about how I looked at you. I was wrong. If there's any way to make things right, please come see me. Dad, I must have read those lines a dozen times. Part of me wanted to tear it up and forget it ever came. But another part, the tired, quiet part that still remembered him reading bedtime stories when I was little, needed to see him one last time. So, that weekend, I drove back to the house I'd once called home. The paint was peeling, the grass was overgrown, and the air felt heavy with memories. When my father opened the door, he looked older, smaller somehow. The confidence that once filled every word was gone. He led me into the living room. The silence between us stretched. Finally, he spoke. Naomi, I wanted to say I'm sorry. I nodded but didn't speak. He took a breath, his voice trembling. You've always thought I loved Jasmine more. Maybe I did. She reminded me of your mother, strong, confident. I thought you were soft. But I see now, you were the strong one all along. His eyes welled up, and for a second, I saw the man I'd once looked up to. But then, as if habit pulled him back, he muttered, Still, Jasmine worked hard for what she had. That was when I stood. My voice came out calm, but every word carried the weight of everything I'd been through. No, Dad. She didn't earn it. She took it. I earned my peace. He didn't say anything after that. Just lowered his head, the silence filling the room like smoke. I turned toward the door, my heart steady. Outside, the sunlight hit my face, warm and clean. The air smelled of rain and freedom. For the first time in my life, I didn't look back. As I walked to my car, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about letting him off the hook. It was about letting myself go. And that day, when I drove away from that old house, I finally did. Do you think Naomi made the right choice by walking away from her father for good? Or should she have given him another chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear what you think. And if you enjoy emotional stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss the next story.